analysis right now from Fox Business's Blake Burman, economist Steve Moore, and GOP pollster Kellyanne Conway. Thanks to all of you for being here. I'm going to start.
Congrats on a great job.
Oh,
Awesome night.
Thank you. It was a terrific night. We had a big win for the network. In terms of overall viewership.
You mean you beat CNBC? I'm just shocked.
And I think that it was a substantive night, and that was really what was critical here, because that's part of what had been missing in this debate. But as you look overall at the evening, and we had 3 hours plus, Blake, of debate there on stage, who is it that you're hearing really emerged as the winner, so to speak?
Well, it's still obviously incredibly early, right? We're in the first, 12, 20 hours or so, whatever it is. The online polls, which kind of gauge enthusiasm, right? You're going to go online, say who won, who lost, so on and so forth, is pointing toward Donald Trump. But that's been the way it's been with the last few debates as well. I thought it was interesting that Frank Lunt's poll out of New Hampshire last night, a state I know you're very familiar with, pointed toward Marco Rubio. And that's kind of the name that you're hearing emerge from this. Once again, back-to-back debates, is that Rubio may be the one who will end up getting something from this. But, I mean, as you know, and you know as well, you got to wait here a few days until, if not more than that, the next batch of polls come out and see who might have come up, who might have come down. Marco
Rubio, I mean, he's been sort of the dark horse that's been emerging, that's increasingly becoming
not such a dark
popular,
horse anymore.
Right? with a lot of the establishment right now. Kellyanne, what is your intel telling you in terms of who might really start to emerge in this process?
Well, thank you for having me. And as we've seen after these 3 first debates, who wins the debate, quote unquote, whether that's based on qualitative information like focus groups or polls afterwards or well-reported stories from journalists in attendance, doesn't really reflect in the polls as well. I think Cruz and Rubio have had a bump up of late after the October 28th debate. And then last night, most of the journalists feel like Cruz and Rubio acquitted themselves well as the two sort of outsiders with insider experience who can also argue for generational, transformational change in the Republican Party's leadership. But Ben Carson never really has a great debate, in my view. It was fine last night, but he seems impervious to it in his poll standing. He seems to still be on top. Same thing with Donald Trump. He's sort of slow and steady wins the race for him. But I think what we saw last night were 2 very different performances from the guys on the end. Rand Paul, I think, had his best debate. He took Rubio to task that $1 trillion in new military spending is not very conservative. And on the other end, you had John Kasich.
I know we're going to play it a little bit later in the show. One of our producers had found it. Jess, do you have that bite for us? We can play that, because I think that did show that sort of juxtaposition. He was saying, look, if you're going to be a fiscal conservative, you've really got to be a conservative. Here's Rand Paul, everyone.
I know that Rand is a committed isolationist. I'm not. I believe the world is a stronger and a better place when the United States is the strongest military power in the world.
Marco, how is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion expenditure for the federal government that you're not paying for? How is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion in military expenditures? You cannot be a conservative if you're going to keep promoting new programs that you're not going to pay for.
I may respond.
You know, that said, I don't know how Rand Paul really moves forward this platform of not spending on the military.
In a Republican primary, too, especially.
Well, here's the thing. That interchange between the two of them, that exchange, it actually benefited both of them, because Rand Paul has to get back his libertarian base, which has actually gone over to Trump. And I think he succeeded in what he needed to do last night, which is get back, the 15% or so of Republicans who are libertarians. He appealed to them, whereas, with Rubio, the more kind of military hawks in the party. So I think it was an exchange that benefited both of them in a big way. And so Rand lives another day. And the other guy, I think, who lives another day to fight is Jeb Bush. Because if he had not had, he was good. He wasn't great. He was good. Good enough, I think, Kellyanne, to fight another day. But I don't know if you had a different.
Well, there are 100 million
Kellyanne, let me just jump in here, because Jeb Bush really, benefited from having a debate forum that was more substantive. So a little less name calling, more substance, more policy oriented. This is something that, frankly, he's pretty good at, right? I mean, this is his strength. The performance aspect of it may not necessarily be so, though.
I totally
every
agree
answer
with you.
that Jeb.
And Jeb Bush should embrace that. Jeb Bush should embrace that, in my view. He should actually go out there and say, look, I'm not going to be the most entertaining or the funniest or the coolest or the most with Twitterish, but I am a substantive guy, and last time I checked, the President of the United States, also the Commander-in-Chief, needs to be the steward of the domestic economy and lead our troops abroad, keep us safe abroad. So he should embrace that. But the question really for him is going to be...
He is embracing it. Blake, go ahead.
Do you avow or disavow what you're saying?
Hang on one second, Kellyanne.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Hang on, it's okay. We're via remote. Go ahead.
There was a clear turn for Jeb Bush last night, whereas in the last debate a couple weeks ago, he went after Marco Rubio. Pretty certain, if you look back at the transcript, every single answer or most of the answers, no matter what was asked of him, he somehow brought it right back to Hillary Clinton. So much so that during the debate, the Jeb camp sent out an email saying, and along the lines of Jeb ... Hillary Clinton, right there in the email. So it was clearly a pivot for Jeb Bush, and you'll notice...
Well, you know who else did that, by the way?
He ignored
Christie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jeb ignored
Christie. We have some sound of Christie going after Hillary Clinton because he kept doing it over and over and over again at 7 o'clock. Okay. Well, we'll hang on to that. We'll play it a little bit later for you. But Christie really...
He was the star last night of all the candidates.
Wanted to go after Christie. Jindal came out swinging.
If you're in 11th place, why do you go after the guy in 9th place? I didn't really understand that strategy.
Christie.
But what Christie was good at is, number one, you're right. Every answer he went after Hillary, and Hillary is the real adversary here if you're a Republican. And number two, he just has these short, kind of pithy punches that there's the toughness, right, of Christie that we all loved when he first emerged on the scene.
I asked him about, speaking of toughness, just exactly what he's going to do on China. I mean, given that they're stealing our intellectual property, they're spying on American corporations, they're spying on American citizens. What can we do about it? What should we be doing about it? Here's what he had to say.
If the Chinese commit cyber warfare against us, they are going to see cyber warfare like they have never seen before. They're building those artificial islands in the South China Sea, and the president won't, up until recently, wouldn't sail a ship within 12 miles or fly a plane over it. I'll tell you this, the first thing I'll do with the Chinese is I'll fly Air Force One over those islands. They'll know we mean business.
Ooh. Talking tough on China. Is this what we need from a leader right now? I mean, the fear, of course, in the back of everyone's mind is, are you going to get yourself in a trade war or worse with China? The idea being that, we want to continue to have access to all of these important markets, this incredible marketplace. How do you walk that line between being tough on China and
I think after a president who's been kind of milquetoast, who's been pushed around by Putin and pushed around by other countries, I think that kind of toughness is what really plays right now.
And it's the cyber aspect of China, because it's the what next. We really have never been there, right? You could talk about taxes and go all the way back to the 1800s or whatever. You could talk about this issue and go all the way back to whenever. But the cyber issue, it's, we're not at the finish line here. This is clearly the starting point, and it's the what next, what do you do? And that's kind of what Christie was starting to get into, and I think will become an issue down the line as well.
So Christie, we're going to continue watching him. Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Jeb Bush is still in the game.
It's still a headline, Jeb Bush.
And we'll be keeping it. We got lots more to talk about over the course of the next hour. Thank you so much, Blake. Great to have you here, Steve. Likewise, Kellyanne, good to see you. Stay with us, everyone.